Welcome to the video on the TIS and TS&O report using the Transportation Impact Analysis, or TIA, guidance by the Missouri Department of Transportation. This information can be found in 905.3.7.3 and 905.3.7.4 of the MoDOT Engineering Policy Guide, or EPG. MoDOT has deployed report templates for traffic impact studies, or TISs, and traffic safety and operations, or TS&Os, that are meant to aid consultants and other parties submitting work to MoDOT in their production of TIS and TS&O reports. This module will provide guidance and expectations for preparing these reports by walking through each section of MoDOT's report templates. These first few slides compare the TIS and TS&O report templates. Two of the MoDOT TIA report templates include the TIS report and the TS&O report. A TIS report recommends adjustments to the transportation network. The focus of the TIS report is handling the traffic generated by the construction of new developments. MoDOT requests that a TS&O report be drafted when the future performance of a roadway has come into question. The focus of a TS&O study is to compare the performance of a roadway between multiple transportation network scenarios. A TS&O report accounts for traffic from future developments. However, unlike the TIS report, its focus is not primarily tied to the construction of one primary development. Both report templates can analyze and compare the performance of multiple design alternatives with varying levels of travel demand. Additionally, both report templates are meant to foster effective communication between report producers, typically consultants, and report reviewers, typically MoDOT. A TS&O analysis may be required at a minimum when modifications are made to an interstate facility or any of the elements associated with the interstate. Elements of the interstate facility could include mainline lanes, collector-distributor roads, existing new or modified ramps, or ramp intersections with a crossroad. MoDOT will work with the FHWA Division Office to determine the proper level of effort on a case-by-case basis. Refer to Chapters 7 and 8 of the FHWA Interstate System Access Guide for safety and operational considerations. This reference is provided at the end of this video. It is important that the report template is not altered before submitting to MoDOT. Do not delete any sections of the template. Instead, if a section does not apply to a given project, write NA and give a brief explanation for why that section does not apply. If additional information is needed, it should be attached to the report as an appendix. The template provides several guidelines in color-coded text to represent information that should either be replaced with project-specific information, section explanations, and content examples. Now let's discuss the TIS report template. The displayed sections correspond with the section numbers of the TIS report template. Let's begin with TIS report section 1, Executive Summary. The purpose of this section is to provide a brief narrative that describes the development being assessed, the analysis process, and the results of the study. This section of the report should be concise yet thorough. It should generally be 1 page or less in length, and it should include the following information: location of the study, description of proposed development, principal findings, and final recommendations and conclusions. TIS Report Section 2 is the introduction. The purpose of the introduction section in the TIS report is to describe the purpose of the report, outline the objectives of the traffic impact study the report summarizes, provide an overview of information relevant to the project background, and briefly describe the project location. Note, if a methods and assumptions document was developed, it can be summarized and referenced throughout this document as appropriate. TIS Report Section 3 focuses on the proposed development. Section 3 of the TIS report template is titled Proposed Development. It will document the following subsections. Study area. This section should be used to define the area of noteworthy impacts related to the proposed development, which includes locations where the development will have direct impacts on traffic conditions. Detailed analysis should be completed for the area of identified impacts. The on-site development section should be used to describe the proposed development being studied and its proposed location. Details on the proposed land use type and intensity, the proposed site plan, and any plans for phasing or timing the construction of the development should be provided. Off-site land use. This section should be used to describe the different land uses which are adjacent to the proposed development's location. Writers should take care to note land uses which influence existing traffic conditions in the study area and how the designated land use of the proposed development relates to nearby land uses. Finally, the site accessibility section should be used to describe existing and proposed site accessibility. This includes a thorough description of the transportation network surrounding the site, which should address existing roadways, traffic control operations, adjacent driveways, frontage roads, private roads, sidewalks, bike accommodations, and transit routes and facilities in the study area. TIS Report Section 4 focuses on existing conditions of the study area. Section 4 of the TIS Report template should be used to discuss existing site conditions and traffic volumes. Section 4 will include the following subsections. The Physical Characteristics subsection discusses the existing site, including roadway geometry and multimodal facilities. If there are any planned changes to roadway or traffic control in the area, these plans should be discussed as well. The subsection on data sources reports all sources of traffic data used to conduct the analysis of existing site conditions. These sources may include, but are not limited to, turning movement counts, average daily traffic, traffic forecast, existing signal timings, and crash data. This section is also expected to include a description of the type and age of all data used for the analysis. The traffic volumes subsection details existing traffic volumes. This typically includes intersection turning movements for the AM and PM peak hours. Section 4 also includes a subsection on traffic and safety MOEs. This section will evaluate the traffic and safety MOEs for the existing transportation network. In addition to evaluating MOEs for passenger cars, analysts should also consider evaluating MOEs for other modes that access the existing site. This section should explain the software programs used to evaluate the MOEs, and it should provide output from any software analyses. An example table like the one displayed can help communicate MOE results for different time periods and for different versions of the transportation network. Potential time periods could include the base year and horizon year, and potential transportation network versions could include existing network and alternative improvements. Tables with similar formats can be used throughout this report for various purposes. TIS Report Section 5 provides an overview of projected traffic. Section 5 of the TIS report template should be used to evaluate how traffic changes in the study area after the completion of the development. Subsections will focus on the background or future no-build forecasting subsection evaluates the traffic volumes that will be on the transportation network in a horizon or future year without the construction of the proposed development. In some cases, background forecasting may be requested for multiple horizon years. This section should include a description of how these traffic projections were generated and cite any traffic forecast used as references. The existing build forecasting subsection evaluates how much traffic would be on the transportation network, assuming the proposed development fully opened tomorrow. This section and the following subsections are meant to walk through the analyst's process for developing the traffic projections for the development. The trip generation subsection describes how trips for the proposed development were determined. If analysts used the ITE trip generation manual to do this, then this section should include a thorough description of which trip generation tables were used and how those tables were used to estimate trips, such as using a weighted average rate or fitted curve equation. If analysts had to collect local data to estimate trips, the data collection process and findings should be detailed in this section. A continuation of project traffic subsections include the trip distribution subsection explains the method and procedure used to determine trip distribution. This narrative should provide a thorough explanation of all reasoning used and assumptions made to distribute trips within the study area. Trip distribution may vary by travel mode. The trip assignment subsection explains the methods and procedures used to conduct trip assignment. This narrative should discuss how factors such as driver tendencies and characteristics, internal circulation design, available roadway capacities, etc., influenced the trip assignment process. The Future Build Forecasting subsection evaluates how much traffic will be on the transportation network in a future horizon year, assuming the proposed development has been constructed. This is accomplished by adding the development trips from the trip generation step of this section to the future background future no-build traffic volumes developed at the beginning of this section. TIS Report Section 6 summarizes the analysis of traffic and improvements. Section 6 of the TIS Report template should focus on evaluating future traffic conditions and comparing alternative improvements. Site access performance identifies all proposed access driveways to the development and analyzes each access with respect to traffic operations and safety. Traffic and Safety MOE analysis evaluates and compares MOEs for the current transportation network, both with and without the proposed development. The goal is to convey how the development will influence traffic and safety conditions. Proposed improvements and improvement subsection summarizes how improvements to the existing transportation network may influence MOEs. TIS Report Section 7 provides the recommendations and conclusion of the report. This section should be used to summarize the purpose and primary findings of the traffic impact study. This chapter should also discuss whether or not the traffic volumes generated by the proposed development warrant improvements to the existing transportation network. If improvements are found to be necessary, then this chapter should use the results of the analyses carried out in Chapter 6 to justify which alternative improvement has the greatest potential for improving traffic conditions in the areas surrounding the proposed development. The next set of slides focuses on the TS&O report template. The displayed sections correspond with the section numbers of the TS&O report template. TS&O report section 1 is the introduction. The purpose of TS&O section 1 is to share the project background, study area, definition of the problem at hand, and design alternatives being considered. Use of supporting figures, especially maps of the study area, is expected. Subsections include: the project background section should include a discussion of the origins, or original purpose and construction year, and relative importance of the roadway segment being studied. This section may also be used to describe the general condition of the existing roadway, or physical deterioration, traffic delays, and congestion. But descriptions should be brief because more specific problems associated with the roadway will be discussed in section 1.3. The study area section defines the limits of the study area. As mentioned earlier, use of supporting figures, such as maps, is expected, as noted by the example. This example figure is helpful because it displays study area intersections and the locations of proposed developments. A continuation of the introduction section includes the following subsections: problem definition and design alternatives. The problem definition section defines the problem or problems motivating the TS&O study. These problems might include, but are not limited to, substantial traffic delays and congestion, safety issues, deteriorating condition of bridges and pavements, and limited accessibility. The Design Alternatives section briefly describes the design alternatives being considered. This section may also include a description of the thought process which led to the selection of the design alternatives being considered. If only one design alternative is being considered, this section may include an explanation of why other alternatives are not being studied. TS&O Report Section 2 focuses on the existing and future year no-build traffic operations and safety analysis. TS&O Section 2 is used to summarize the state of traffic operations and safety conditions for the existing roadway and for a future year where the roadway has not been improved. Subsections include background or future no-build forecasting, documents the development of the traffic volumes that will be on the transportation network in a horizon or future year without the construction of the proposed project. In some cases, background forecasting may be requested for multiple horizon years. This section should include a description of how these traffic projections were generated and cite any traffic forecast used as references. An example table like the one displayed can be used to communicate forecasted no-build traffic volumes. The traffic operations compares existing traffic operations to traffic conditions at a horizon year, assuming the roadway has not been improved. The structure of this section depends heavily on the measures of effectiveness, MOEs, being used to carry out the analysis. For instance, if several MOEs are being considered, a table may be helpful in making a direct comparison between existing conditions and the no-build horizon year. If a single MOE is being considered, riders should consider including more specific figures. If travel speed is being analyzed, speed profiles at peak periods for both existing conditions and the no-build scenario may be used to compare traffic operations. This section may also discuss how the projected traffic conditions may exacerbate the problems discussed in Section 1.3. For instance, decreased travel speed in the horizon year suggests the extent to which current congestion may worsen over time. An example table like the one displayed can be used to summarize and compare MOEs. The safety section compares existing safety conditions to safety conditions at a horizon year, assuming the roadway has not been improved. A table like the one shown may be useful in communicating this comparison. Similar to traffic operations, this section may discuss how changes in safety conditions over time may influence the problems defined in Section 1.3. For instance, an increase in annual crashes suggests safety conditions will worsen over time. TS&O Report Section 3 summarizes the traffic operations and safety analysis of the design alternatives. TS&O Section 3 should be used to compare the traffic operations and safety conditions for the existing year, future year no-build scenario, and one or more future year build alternatives. Subsections include future build forecasting, documents the forecast of how much traffic will be on the transportation network in a future horizon year, assuming the proposed project has been constructed. This section should include a description of how these traffic projections were generated and cite any traffic forecast used as a reference. An example figure, like the one displayed, can be used to communicate different traffic volumes depending on the build scenario selected. Summarize traffic operations for the existing year, future year no-build scenario, and one or more future year build alternatives. Similar to the no-build section, the structure of this section will depend heavily on the MOEs being used to analyze traffic conditions. If several MOEs are being considered, a table like the one displayed may be helpful in communicating the MOEs for each scenario. If a single MOE is being considered, figures specific to that MOE may be more useful in comparing traffic conditions for each scenario. An example can be used to compare MOEs between different scenarios. The next subsection is safety. This section summarizes traffic safety for the existing year, future year no-build scenario, and one or more future year build alternatives. A table may be useful in communicating this comparison and can be used to compare safety MOEs between different scenarios. TS&O Report Section 4 summarizes the preferred design alternative. TS&O Section 4 should be used to recommend a preferred design alternative and discuss how that design alternative may be implemented. This chapter should reference the results presented in Section 3 to justify the selection of the preferred design alternative. This chapter may also include information on potential construction phasing and/or other considerations that coincide with the preferred design alternative, such as noise effects, ITS, and signing requirements. Subsections include design exceptions. This subsection identified any known or likely design exceptions associated with the preferred alternative. Consider appending any completed design exception documentation. An additional subsection is coordination with future development. This subsection describes how construction of the preferred design alternative may align or conflict with state and regional plans for future development. This may include considering a statewide transportation improvement program or a Council of Governments transportation improvement program. Coordination with NEPA process. This step describes the environmental studies the Federal Highway Administration, FHWA, requires under the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, in order for the preferred design alternative to be constructed including an Access Justification Report, AJR, if applicable. This section should discuss the processes by which these studies will be carried out and FHWA approval will be secured. The conclusion section. This step restates the purpose of the TS&O study and to summarize how the proposed design alternative will address the problems defined in Section 1. This section may also include a description of where the project stands in the NEPA process and when a record of decision may be anticipated. Now, let's discuss key takeaways and additional resources. MoDOT has developed TIS and TS&O report templates that are meant to aid consultants and other parties submitting work to MoDOT in the production of TIS and TS&O reports. This module discussed guidance and expectations for preparing these reports by walking through each section of MoDOT's report templates. Resources that provide additional general guidance include MoDOT EPG 905.3.7.3 and 905.3.7.4, TIS report template and TS&O report template, respectively, and the FHWA Interstate System Access Guide, which discusses safety and operational considerations for a TS&O. Time to see what you know. Question 1. What is a valid purpose for a TIS report to be needed? A. Analyze and compare performance of multiple alternatives. B. Recommend potential adjustments to the transportation network. C. Foster effective communication. Or D. All of the above. The correct answer is D. All of the above. Question 2. True or false? MoDOT is likely to request a TS&O report when the future performance of a roadway has come into question. The correct answer is A. True. The TS&O report is likely to be requested when the future performance of a roadway has come into question. Question 3. True or false? A TS&O report can account for traffic from future developments. However, unlike the TIS report, its focus is not primarily tied to the construction of one primary development. The correct answer is A. True. Thank you for participating in the TIA Guidance TIS and TS&O report module. MoDOT encourages you to view the other TIA Guidance learning modules. If you have any questions, please reach out to MoDOT Central Office, Highway Safety and Traffic.